So I wanted to make a video because I've been watching videos from people like James Yeager and several other people that talk about not carrying with around in the chamber. Um, and they've given all these statistics which are bunk, to be honest, because statistics, you can see this in politics all the time, can be used either side. It's people that are using statistics generally have an agenda that they're trying to promote with that statistic. So James Yeager says um, he has an agenda. He's saying that everyone who thinks otherwise or thinks opposite of him is a complete idiot. First of all, that's a very basic, unintelligent way of thinking for someone that claims to have an IQ of 129 on the low end to 170 something on the high end, which I guarantee you your IQ is nowhere near that. And I will pay for the IQ test, a legitimate one, to prove it. Um, but you got to also understand that most people that are carrying are not people in the firearms industry. They're not the ones, as Jaeger or these other folks running these schools. They're normal, everyday people like myself. I do not carry around in the chamber. Here's why. Right now, I have four boys under the age of 5 or 5 years and younger. And the thinking is okay, well, if you have children, your gun should be locked somewhere where they cannot access it. Absolutely. Gun safety is primary, that's the focus. If anything happened to my kids because of one of my guns, I couldn't live with that. As I'm sure most parents would feel the same. And yet, if it's locked and put away, how am I supposed to get to it when I need it? Because the same statistic you're using about the average gunfight lasting 3 seconds, maybe that statistic was true at the OK Corral, but there's also some statistics that need to be looked at as far as the number of times someone that carries a concealed weapon has to actually draw it versus the number of times they actually have to pull the trigger. And I want to say that number, and you can look it up if you're interested, that number is something like between 3 and 7%. So, of those 3 and 7% of times people draw their weapon, are they actually having to pull the trigger? So, all these encounters that you're talking about people should be preparing for, they don't happen. That does not exist in the real world. They exist in the tactical world, which is what you're selling, but not in the real world. Real firearms are is an intruder coming up wanting to rob you, and you have to draw your weapon. And the sight of that gun alone, 93 to 98% or 97% of the time, is enough to end the conflict. When it's not, the extra half second it takes for me to rack that slide, you're saying that's going to cost me my life? I'll risk it over costing my kid's life if they happen to come across my gun. Because my 5-year-old, I guarantee you right now, he's strong enough to click a safety and pull a trigger. He is not strong enough to rack the slide. And I know this because I've checked it. I've asked him, I've sat with him as early as 3 years old. My kids are around guns, learning about guns and gun safety. Because if I need to access it, they can also access it. And if we want to talk about the average gunfight lasting 3 seconds, how long does it take to get to a safe and open it? And then draw your weapon? I guarantee you it's over 3 seconds. So your statistic using to back up your agenda is bonk. That does not exist in the real world. You're selling a product. You're selling a service. You're selling an idea. I don't buy it. And I'll put my IQ up against yours any day of the week. So for the normal person that watches the same videos, and I've watched other videos where I agree with James Yeager and several other people, and I agree with some of the ideas and some of the reasoning behind it. However, in the real world that most of us live in, I have to think about other concerns than you do. I have to think about if my child gets a hold of it. Well, what's going to keep him safe? I'm more concerned about his safety than my own. So I don't buy your arguments. You didn't sell me. And anyone else who made those videos there was another one where a guy was timing the, from drawing with a round in the chamber versus having to rack the slide. Difference was literally about half a second, which is that long. And if you're saying that long is going to affect the outcome of a gunfight in today's day and age, I'll take my chances with it. A better argument is to say, hey, if you're having to fight someone off with this hand, how are you going to rack the slide with this? And yes, doing it on your leg and all that good stuff that they teach in the tactical world, there are options to do that. That's not the real world. We don't live in a combat society. We're not at war. We're not military. We're not police officers. We're everyday people. And so we have to make everyday people type of decisions. And I think that's where these guys get lost. Anyway, those are my thoughts. You can agree with me. You can disagree with me. Fantastic. It doesn't bother me either way, because I actually am okay with people disagreeing with me, and I don't think that they're a big idiot if they do. And by the way, Mr. Yeager, if you want to compare resumes, you have a strong emphasis in one area, tactical and military or whatever. My resume is in real world, and since that's what we're talking about, is concealed carry in the real world, I'll compare resumes. I'll also compare IQs. Anything you want there, buddy. So, for everyday people like myself, you're not doing anything wrong. Thanks for watching.